Okay, previously I just thought Moriarty, you know, the one who couldn't go anywhere without telling everyone he was a professor of physics.
I'm a scientist. I'm not going to bang on about this. I know others in the YouTube community bang on about this quite at length.
So my name's Philip Moriarty. I'm a professor of physics at the University of Nottingham.
I'm a professor of physics, University of Nottingham.
It is indeed Professor Moriarty.
Well, yeah, before I thought he was just an arsehole. Not that that greatly matters, a lot of scientists are arseholes. But Jesus, is he a socially clueless arsehole? I mean, beyond the interactions I had with him, I just came across this stream of him with Bearing, and God, is he an insufferably smug jerk. Always telling people to be the bigger man, to act their age.
He spazzes out about people on his own side.
Oh, stop with the spazzes out language, will you? You said you wanted a growing up Chad. Could you stop with the tedious? What age? What? Just if you don't mind, I don't want you to dox yourself, and you can just refuse to answer this. But what age are you, Patrick?
I'm 32.
So start acting like a 32-year-old.
Well, that's interesting, Professor Moriarty, because he actually did a collaboration with Kevin Logan, a co-worker, and it went a little something like this.
You're in your 40s, Philip, and a reasonably accomplished postdoctoral researcher with a PhD in chemistry. I can't believe it's entirely beyond your wit to address my points without sounding like a 7-year-old child in a playground. Actually, that's rather unfair of me. My son's 7 and he's capable of much wittier and pithier riposte than her head up your arse.
So let's see how Professor Moriarty and co-worker show their maturity in representing me, shall we? Call me crazy, Professor, but I'm not entirely certain that photoshopping someone's head onto a masturbating baboon is really an argument worthy of a professor of physics.
So my name's Philip Moriarty. I'm a professor of physics at the University of Nottingham.
In his 40s, no less. And yes, Professor Moriarty did do all the recordings of the voices in this video himself, leaving Kevin Logan to read my emails. A worthy collaboration, Professor. Indeed, I would probably go so far to say you've permanently waived all rights to ever call anyone childish again.
Oh, stop with the spazzes out language, will you? You said you wanted a growing up Chad. Could you stop with the tedious? What age? What? Just if you don't mind, I don't want you to dox yourself, and you can just refuse to answer this. But what age are you, Patrick?
I'm 32.
So start acting like a 32-year-old.
Shut up.
Okay,
Let me
go
finish my fucking point.
Please don't tell me to shut up, Patrick. I've not once told you to shut up. That's very rude. That's very rude, Patrick.
Now he chastises Bearing for his intellectual property violation, and to go on and on about it.
And every time you mention brand, I'm going to remind you that you ripped off that intellectual property. Okay? So continue.
Moriarty was keen to brand Bearing as a thief.
You admit freely that nicking that intellectual property.
No, I didn't nick anything. I didn't nick anything. Let's be specific here.
Bearing quite rightly says this is bullshit.
Copyright infringement is not stealing. That's why they have laws for stealing and theft, and they have laws for copyright infringement. To steal something means that the original owner doesn't have that thing anymore. If I steal your car, you no longer have a car. If I use your cartoon bear picture, it's not theft. It's copyright infringement, but it's not theft. And I'd appreciate it if you'd stop fucking falsely accusing me of being a thief.
Yeah, the professor simply doesn't have a clue what he's talking about here. Now, in reality, Bearing using somebody else's cartoon was in the grey areas. Hell, I wouldn't have taken it to court, but it wasn't a wholesale rip-off of someone else's work. He wasn't just copying a movie and selling it or something. One that infringed on someone else's intellectual property, sure. But quite often how these things work, just like, say, for instance, Huey Lewis and Ghostbusters, or Freddie Mercury and David Bowie versus Vanilla Ice, such disputes are typically settled by things like royalties. Now, I'll be honest, what Bearing did was outrageously dumb. But I gotta say, I was equally impressed with the speed at which he managed to resolve that dispute and get his channel back. And I tip my hat to the man for that. He had a really quite weak position and walked away with essentially everything he wanted. Well played, dude. Well played. Great irony is, though, that while Moriarty was constantly berating people for using avatars and pseudonyms, and saying why didn't they just have the courage to stand by their words?
You seem to think that I care what you look like. I don't care. I make this point time and time again. I couldn't care less who you are. But what I do care is that you lack the intellectual integrity, courage, and just the courage in general, to actually do this slagging off, to make your points without hiding behind the cartoon bear.
Well, yeah, this is the guy who deleted all of his accounts and quit YouTube. Shit, that's not just hiding behind an avatar. That's just hiding.
And if it makes you feel more comfortable, I promise to use your Thunderfoot handle during the debate. I can't say fairer than that now, can I? I know how important your pseudonymous safe space is to you. It's clearly challenging for you to be open and honest with your identity. It just takes a little bit of courage. If you take it slowly, in stages, I'm sure you'll eventually be able to outgrow your reliance on silly monikers.
Now, sure, I've seen the video where he says that he was going to quit YouTube anyway.
That's not worth it. It's not. So one of my New Year's resolutions, as I said, is I want to cut down on this side of things.
And yes, I have heard accounts that it was because someone threatened his family. But honestly, if you see how smug Moriarty is about Bearing getting doxed
and showing the screenshots,
I don't know. This was honestly the first.
This is Encyclopedia Dramatica. This is Encyclopedia fucking Dramatica.
You can maybe see why it happened. You know, the insincerity as he's reveling in talking about this Encyclopedia Dramatica article that doxed Bearing and called him a pedophile. But shouldn't Moriarty take those threats made because he was gloating about Bearing getting doxed and called a paedophile seriously? I mean, obviously, everyone who gets involved in that sort of drama is in immediate physical danger. Yeah, right. I think Moriarty actually best sums up how seriously these threats are in reality best here.
This is what we were discussing in the hangout. There's credulity and this is credulity. This is beyond Pizzagate. It's beyond Pizzagate. I know you're pissed off, Patrick. I know. And if that's a level of credulity that's beyond belief, Patrick. So go on, keep going.
Now, if you want my reckoning, and this is just a reckoning, there was real blowback of some sort in Moriarty's life. It's quite possible that some of the friends of Moriarty's kids, say for instance, were actually Bearing fans, especially if Bearing was pulling in 500,000 hits per day.
Even Phil Mason, Thunderfoot, with whom I've had many debates, even he has said your particular style is not his cup of tea. And that's for Phil Mason.
Yeah, that's right, Professor. I'm not a great fan of Bearing. Not quite my cup of tea. But you know what else I'm not a great fan of? A lot of the University of Nottingham videos. Indeed, I had to stop watching them because of the stuff like the alkali metals, where you're just completely factually wrong on a high school chemistry type level. And when I wrote a rather polite email to try and get it corrected, you just ignored it. Hell, I don't want to sound too catty, but a lot of the videos there are just the sort of speculative talk you would get at coffee breaks in a science department. You know, the sort of thing that would be far better and more accurately addressed by 5 minutes of reading on Wikipedia. So yeah, I basically had to stop watching the videos, just like with the Young Turks, because otherwise I would be making busted videos about that. And honestly, there are better targets for me to prioritize. And while I do wish you would actually get some decent scientists to fact check those videos, I do appreciate the general idea of what the University of Nottingham is trying to achieve. Yeah, Bearing isn't my cup of tea, but so what? He still, if you take his 500,000 hits per day, is pulling in 5 times the traffic that this channel does. So what's your point? I'm pretty sure that Bearing doesn't sit there at the beginning of the day thinking, I wonder if Thunderfoot will like this. And quite rightly so, because if he were, he wouldn't be getting 500,000 hits per day. And finally, on the doxing, with Christine Winter's involvement in it.
Right. So within 5 or 6 days of ED releasing this dox article, right, this horrendous dox article that labels me a fucking pedophile, for Christ's sake, within 5 or 6 days, Christy Winters shares that link 3 or 4 times in various different comment sections. I've got screenshots of all of them.
And that's meant to mean that she's behind it? I don't understand. We're talking about the evidence for Christy being responsible for doxing you. How is that meant to support your case that she's responsible for doxing you?
As it's been said before, remarkable claims require remarkable evidence. You know what else, Phil? Unremarkable claims require unremarkable evidence.
Christy actively pushed around my personal information, my sensitive information.
In what sense? That wasn't already publicly available. In what sense did she do that? I've not seen any evidence for that at all.
What is known is that Fisty was there taking screenshots of Encyclopedia Dramatica on the very day that Bearing was doxed and was happily going around promoting that page. And that her friend was central in reporting Bearing to the people who filed the copyright takedowns of his channel. You know, there's an element of grudge here. Now let me let you in on a secret. I, wanting nothing to do with doxing, don't want anyone's dox for any reason, let alone going around taking screenshots of that shit on the very day it was released and promoting it.
Hey, hang on, what date did you say this website released my docs?
On or about December 6th.
And what date did you say you took these screenshots?
On December 6th, when I took this screenshot 2 days ago.
Wow, so the day that this website releases my docs, which you had nothing to do with, you just so happened to be front and centre to have a good look at it. That is a coincidence.
Hell, even back in the Venom Fang X days, I didn't want to know who he was, because then I couldn't be accused of anything. Hell, the nearest I ever got to this was with Laughing Witch, you know, the one who ran the letter-writing campaign to my employer to try to get me fired. And even at that, I didn't take a swing at her until she actually put out the video saying she'd been doxed and that there was nothing, absolutely nothing, that anyone could do to her. And yet you only have to look at the ratings of the video to appreciate that your average person sees this as beautiful internet karma. And you, Phil, you're a real piece of work accusing everyone else of being a coward before deleting your accounts and going in hiding offline. You know, I would have a little more sympathy for you here had you not danced a little jig when Tim Hunt got lynched by lying feminists. And the professor was so clear that of course people have the freedom to say what they want. They just had to deal with the consequences of that.
So whoever said academic freedom, freedom of speech, he's absolutely free to say whatever silly thing he likes, but it has consequences. And he's seeing those consequences. Do I want to see the man in tears?
Honestly,
this is Encyclopedia Dramatica. This is Encyclopedia fucking Dramatica. And I couldn't care less who you are. But what I do care is that you lack the intellectual integrity, courage, and just the courage in general to actually do this slagging off, to make your points without hiding behind the cartoon. Do you want to see anybody reduced to tears like he and his wife? Of course not. Absolutely, of course not. But on the other hand, when you say things, there are consequences. But what age are you, Patrick?
I'm 32.
So start acting like a 32-year-old.
You own that copyright. We've sorted out that dispute. It's none of your fucking business. We've come to terms with an agreement. We've moved forward. What's this fucking?
It's none of your fucking business. You put this stuff out publicly on YouTube. How is it not? It's out in the public domain. None of my fucking business. Wow. So you do this. You put it out there. If it were private material, fine.
Yeah, I'm beginning to see how this works. Those are just the standards for everyone else to be held accountable to. All those other weakling professors and Nobel Prize winners. While you and your co-workers should never be held accountable for anything. And you know what, Professor? It's at times like this that you can be thankful that all of those anti-feminists that you were so vitriolic about, that they are bigger men than you, that they're more mature adults than you, with a better understanding of free speech than you. Because believe me, Professor, if you were treated like you treated everyone else, at this point your arse would be grass.